Usually we're apologising for the appalling weather, but we can't do that tonight. Whenever a poet has her first book published, it's an exciting event. And talking of exciting events, I think what Ralph Westman is doing with Walia Press and publishing poetry in small, very pretty editions is just fantastic. Today we've got Susan Austin's first book. Susan is an activist, a poet and a good person. And to launch it we have Gina Mercer, who's a poet and a good person also.
Oh, come on, you bad.
No.
Thank you. I want to start tonight with two toasts. Well, you've still got wine in your glass, I hope. The first is to Janet and Christopher, who create this haven for book lovers, and they've made such a wonderful space to celebrate the birth of Susan's book and all the others that they launch here. So here's to Janet and Christopher. The second toast I want to propose is to Ralph for his exciting publishing program at Walia Press. As Chris says, it is such a boon to all of us that Ralph is dedicating so much of his hard-won energy to bringing out books like Susan's. I have a little bit of an idea about the amount of work that goes into producing a book, and I spoke to Ralph earlier as he dashed out to get his camera and dashed back again, and I think he reckons about 8 to 10 books that he's produced in about 12 months, which is just a stunning achievement for those of you who know the amount of work that goes into that. So if the government hasn't already slashed the award, I think we should all join together to nominate Ralph as a national living treasure. What do you reckon? Ralph. You don't have to be really old to get it either, I understand.
As long as I'm still living.
Well, that is true.
We'll drink to that.
Now to talk about and toast this marvellous book, Undertow. Rereading it for, I think I calculated the 4th or 5th time in preparation for tonight, I suddenly understood something quite vital. Susan Austin is a dancer. Her biographical note declares her to be an occupational therapist and an eco-socialist activist, but truly she is a dancer. This collection of poetry is actually a dance performance. In this book, Susan performs dance after dazzling dance. Hers is a delicious and potent performance, deft, precise, sensuous and elegant. The topics Susan writes about are engaging, serious, insightful and very funny. She ranges from the beginning of a new relationship to the grief she feels after the death of her mother, to the inescapable guilt one feels as a first world traveller in a developing country. And I want to read one of her poems because I wanted to talk about it a little bit. And this one's called When Dreams Run Ahead. It's page 16 for those of you who want to read along. When Dreams Run Ahead. From one date and 3 text messages, I imagined a whole relationship. Us in a warm bath, legs entwined, on a holiday in France, maybe visiting your sister and her kids. From one date and 3 text messages, I knew we were compatible. Pictured drinking with your friends, being driven to the movies, you beside me, not nervous. In one date and 3 text messages, I discovered real intimacy. Saw us exchange gifts at Christmas, sip red wine on the sofa, slide under the duvet on my bed. One date and 3 text messages. It took a while to get over that whole relationship. As you can see, there's a lovely dry wit in operation here, isn't there? We can all relate to the topic of the ludicrous fantasies we run in our heads when we meet someone new. It's easy to connect with this poem. It's accessible, familiar. It makes us smile and reflect wryly on our recurrent foibles. It makes its observations and its point in a pleasurable way. But how does the dancer achieve that? Achieve a performance of that calibre in just 24 lines? Too often, as readers and critics, we focus on the content of a poem with without looking at how the poem is working, how it is crafted. We stay with the simple and perhaps simplistic question of what is the poem about, without going further to ask questions about how the poem works in and on us. This interests me for two reasons. Firstly, I'm intrigued by our capacity to split the poetic performance so neatly into questions of content, arbitrarily separating that aspect from questions of technique and form. For a poem to be successful, we know both aspects must work together. Just, for example, look at the clever way Susan uses repetition here. She seamlessly analyses the true nature of fantasies, how they recur and persist on the flimsiest of evidence. One date, 3 text messages after all. She does this through her deft deployment of that simple technique, repetition. This synergy of technique and content is what makes a poem lift from the page. It gives it the power to transform. When we watch a dance performance, we don't do this splitting so readily, I think. We may be moved by a dance performance, but we are also continuously conscious of the skill of the dancers as they perform those moves which transform and move us. Is it the presence of the dancer's body, I wonder, which forces us to attend to the matter of skill, at the same time as we immerse ourselves in the emotional experience? The second reason I'm interested in this capacity is because after decades of reading reviews and literary criticism, I've observed that there's something going on here, and it has to do with the body of the poet. In the majority of cases where critics review the work of a woman poet, they will comment at length and sometimes exclusively on questions of content. Only rarely do women poets have their technique, their craft, discussed by reviewers and critics. The splitting of these two aspects of poetry is much more marked when women poets are the subject, and that interests me enormously. So now I'm going to speak a little about Susan's skill as a poet, to discuss how she dances us to different realms, makes us laugh, makes us reflect. How does she do that? Let's look at the poem I read earlier. First, let's admire her succinctness. This is a vital aspect of poetry, to say and do a lot in very few words. Whenever I teach poetry, this is one of the tasks with which students grapple hardest. The tendency to prose is very strong. Susan's dancing poems show us how it is done. Her economy with words is remarkable. Her word choice is careful, precise, but she makes it look easy. Like a dancer spinning on point, she balances and pivots without appearing to move a muscle. There is no strain or groan of effort here. But look carefully at each of her poems and you will see the skill that has gone into making them so deft and apparently effortless. This is why I used the word elegance earlier. Dancers take our breath away as they leap and pirouette across the stage. When you read Susan's book, Undertow, allow yourself to be immersed in and transformed by the complex ideas, the wit, the intelligence and emotion of each poem. Do that by all means, but don't forget to also draw in a breath of admiration for her remarkable dexterity as a wordsmith. Take note of the brilliance of her dancing performance, her subtle images, her sustained metaphors. She may make it look easy, but that is the mark of the true dancer, the true craftswoman. I want to finish by reading a poem which could be set in this very room, and it's called Bookshop Capers. Page 4, Bookshop Capers. At night, behind locked bookshop doors, words sneak from their pages to mix with others. The aisles host a disco of ideas. Elegies hobnob with cocktail recipes. Clever sonnets disband, mingle and reform into villanelles. A pantoum shakes her booty beside self-help cliches, busy tending to each other. Vulnerable haiku rush to adopt more words. Free verse cruisers chatting up abandoned rhymes. Heroic couplets leap from shelf to shelf. Idols cower in their archaic clothes and venture nowhere. Rap practices its rhythm as loud as permitted without waking up your first baby. Ballads can all over the place, trying to jingle everything into a logical tale. As the night goes on, limericks attract all sorts to their stand-up sessions at the back, while the dictionaries and thesauruses quietly make out in the corner. See how Susan takes a simple conceit and dances it across the stage, the page, to make us laugh and reflect and delight in her supple mind. Many poets resist the impulse to write humorous poetry. They worry that it will make them seem less serious or somehow lightweight. But Susan is a serious and confident poet, one who knows that the dynamic quality of lightness is at the heart of the dance. She writes poetry that is as elegant and agile as ballet, as erotic as belly dance, as strong and gutsy as stomp dancing. So I'd ask you, please join me in toasting the dazzling performance that is this book, Undertow, to Susan, the dancer.